To the party.
They departed in here. Oh, he was here, but he departed.
It's The Departed.
Yeah.
This is Frame Rate,
That's
where we rate frames. He's Michael. I'm Abe. You know the show. We typically talk about movies, and we're talking about The Departed today with our friend.
Do you know who would love the Dropkick Murphys?
Who?
Chief O'Brien. Right?
Cole Meany?
No, Chief O'Brien. Someone
The
on
character
DS9
from-
needs to
yes,
get
yes.
him into the Dropkick Murphys. He would love the Dropkick Murphys. He would be listening to it while working on the tubes.
Yeah.
They shit on the British more than they do the filthy Cardis, though. I think it would be better if they were. Anyway.
But they're working class. Like they have all this stuff about the working class
Sure.
stuff, which is what Chief O'Brien
And he
loves.
never wants to be an officer. Yeah, very pointedly.
Yeah.
He
By
never
the way,
does.
it's Callum Meany.
No.
Or Column.
It's
Meany.
Column
Yeah, Column.
Colm.
Column.
because he's got that dick.
got that dick.
No, I just heard him say it in an interview, and I'm like, I've been saying
He's
it
wrong
forever.
He's wrong.
He's
wrong. What
It's
is
the
he?
children who are wrong.
Irish?
Welcome.
Yeah.
I'm Dave.
Welcome. It's like an old glove we slide back into, and we're the fingers.
Well, yeah,
Did
you
you-
might know Dave from Inside Dads and Star
Yeah.
Trek: The Next Futurama. So
Hey,
he's
his
a big bean,
stink
basically.
is-
He's a de facto big bean.
His stink is all up in
Yeah,
here.
tell me about his stink. I'm sorry that I
I
interrupted you.
spray all over your beans.
Great.
That's what
This
I
is
do.
too casual. Let's shape up.
Let's shape up or ship out.
Thanks for having
This is an
me.
important film.
It is. It's won the
yeah.
Academy
Did you
Award.
guys invite me on because I'm from Massachusetts? Is this like racism?
Yeah.
No,
Against
we
me?
just we presented
Do the voice.
We presented Dave with the choice of do the voice. We presented Dave with the choice of The Departed or Road to Perdition, and I actually just think they're both kind of a similar tone range or a same amount of intensity.
I
Yeah.
love them both. They both, to me,
They're both interesting. We've
Little
wanted to
bit daddy.
cover both from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little arty. A little art
Departed is
daddy.
very daddy. But yeah, they both also represent two like casting moments. I don't know if you remember, like Road to Perdition. It was like, oh my god, Tom Hanks as a villain, as a murderer.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's like
I remember-
like shoots many people in the face. Yeah.
Yeah. And then The Departed, I don't think people think about this as much, but I do believe, is this the first time Leo worked with Scorsese?
I believe so. Yeah.
and then
it's this beginning of a beautiful relationship.
It is. It also feels like Scorsese in a new generation. What did he do before this? Gangs of New York?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then Leo has worked with Scorsese.
Leo has worked with them. I was wrong that just then.
But what I mean by that is I remember being like, oh my God, look at Matt Damon in a Scorsese movie on his best behavior, you know?
Yeah.
Look at fucking Alec Baldwin. Look at Marky Mark in this fucking in this Scorsese film. It just felt like it'd been a slow burn, but it really felt like this, like, oh wow, we're in like modern Scorsese and modern actors. It's produced by Bradley Pitt.
Well, and I've
as
always
well.
followed. I mean, this was 2006, so I was 21, so definitely already following pop culture. And I remember, and like filmmaking brass tacks. So I was aware of and interested and fascinated by already the fact that this is loosely based on a Hong Kong action movie called Infernal Affairs.
Yeah.
That has the same basic premise. A rat is in the mafia or the Yakuza or something. The analog in that case. Yakuza's Japanese, pardon me, but you know what I mean. And then someone else is in the cops. It's like the same deal, although he changed the way the sequences play out.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, this is going to be wild. Like, I've never seen Scorsese adapt something like that or knew his interests even lied in that direction.
Interestingly enough, he didn't watch the film before he
Oh,
made
did he
this
not?
film.
Okay. He just heard the premise and is like, oh, that sounds good.
He's like, yeah, I love to make movies about
Because I was going to
rats.
say, it's totally
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
This is also, I think that's what it is. This is his first mob movie since Casino. And so that's what it was like. It was like, oh my God, it's new mob Scorsese with all these people.
But
also,
it really doesn't feel rambly and atmospheric like Scorsese. Like, it really feels like a tight, fun action movie in a way that I don't think he's done before or since.
It's more like a thriller. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the first Jack Nicholson Scorsese film?
I don't know.
I
don't think it is.
I don't know why you're asking.
I'm not a
think
Scorsese scholar. I wish I was.
But that's
more.
wild to me, right? Is like when I remember this coming out and going like, "Oh, Jack Nicholson, that's a classic Scorsese actor." And then I thought about it and went like,
feels
wait,
right.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever been in a fucking Scorsese.
He's a rugged
film.
old guy. He kills it in this movie.
He
more
does.
than most. Like he's Joker level. You know,
Well,
like
that's-
he's eating
Don't
up the
stop
scenery.
till you're numb.
That's the other thing. I
He's a
didn't realize
rat.
watching that scene specifically.
You want some coke?
He's not Jack Nicholson at this point in his career. He was doing like anger management. He was
Comedies,
doing
yeah.
Broken
yeah,
flowers.
and so like you
No, that's
forget,
Murray.
like he's like you look at his career and you realize like yeah he hasn't played like a mobster since the 90s.
Yeah, about Schmidt's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and like he's known more as the Joker. So this is all to say that this really is like watching Tom Hanks as a killer too, where I was like, I'm not actually used to Jack Nicholson, old Jack Nicholson being scary.
I can't. I don't know. He just looks scary.
I
That's the
know.
thing
feel like
with
Jack Nicholson's always
He's
exuded. I mean, The
always
But
Shining.
you know
my
what I'm
God.
talking about, where an actor is like known for being scary, The Shining, etc.
Yeah.
Batman, they start becoming more of a cartoon villain, and then they start kind of slowly becoming a parody of themselves. Like they put him in like The Bucket List
That's
or in Anger Management because he's Jack Nicholson,
And
That's
because
the
he's
way-
getting older, so they like put him out to pasture in comedies.
Right.
And, yeah.
And so he becomes, in my mind, more of this like gentle figure. And then The Departed was this reminder of like, no, he could play a fucking
Sure,
grounded
okay.
maniac.
I'll buy that it's a reminder, but it was always there. Like, we
Oh, it
have
was
the
always
receipts
there.
that he can do that. So, Dave, I'll just say, don't disappoint me, or some other guy will be shoving his fat prick up Miss Freud's ass. To quote a wise man.
It's a
No, but I was
what a line.
surprised to hear that come out of Jack Nicholson's mouth, is why I mentioned
Oh yeah,
it.
that's
I
again.
was like,
He's
whoa.
terrifying.
Yeah. Well,
When he's just
also,
holding the hand.
well, that's
just
what I'm
how
saying
unhinged
is
he is. It's
this
so good.
movie's closer to John Wick on the spectrum that I remembered, meaning like, pardon, I have a complex relationship with Scorsese. I think he's like middle for me. There's hits and misses. And I think he's brilliant in some ways. In some ways, I really disagree with his aesthetic, or it's just not my cup of tea.
Interesting.
Not even aesthetic, but his storytelling vibe.
Oh,
Well, I'm also not super masculine forward in my energy mix. And so I don't know. It's kind of alienating to me when stuff is like, balls and dicks. This guy's a dick. He's got balls. I'll smash your balls.
And it doesn't change for you that you're like, but like the whole joke is these guys are overcompensating. You know, like
Yeah.
he's because
You think?
Scorsese's a little nerd. Yeah,
No, but he worships the Goodfellas guys. No, I don't think that's ironic.
I mean,
I think he thinks mobsters
it's
are cool
super
as shit.
interesting. No, I don't think you're. I
Okay.
don't think you're right about that. I think
He's
he
devoted his
thinks it's
life like
interesting.
he's like, what about old mobsters, gangs in New York? What about future mobsters? Like, it's like all he cares about.
Have you guys watched Casino recently?
Yeah. No, not recently. No.
Because I do think so. We always think of Goodfellas, and I think Goodfellas is one of his more straight up. We're having fun.
Or
This is
taxi
a mob.
driver.
It's still like, in the end, he becomes a rat. In the end, they show like the consequences of his action. Scorsese always loved consequences. Casino felt like he was making a bigger observation about like the founding of something on crimes that are then made legitimately and Disneyfied. If you remember, the ending of that is sort of about how the mob is ultimately driven out.
Yeah.
And how these corporations aren't that much different. They just do it in a more polite way, which I actually think this movie is a bit about when it comes to cops versus criminals. That's
Right.
all to say that Scorsese, yes, he does always do the like, it's kind of cool, but he always has a larger thing to say, an observation through the lens of crime. And he also knows when, like we covered Flower Moon, Killers of the Flower Moon. He doesn't do it for that. He's not like, look how great and fun it is to be this fucking white supremacist, Christian. Like,
if it was like Goodfellas, he would have a sequence where like they're having a great time,
and there's like a montage where like, this is what we do.
Women.
You know, we do this. We marry these women. Like they don't. It's not from that.
No,
so
I
he
think
knows
even he
totally...
knows that the full-on genocide of Native Americans is different than mobster intrigue.
That's what I'm saying. He understands. He so like to Michael's point, I think to him the mob is a lighter subject because in his mind he sees all these guys who are just like, you know, he loves the story of like people like in America becoming like powerful by their own
sacrificing their morality to do so, and also that the cops are just as crooked as the criminals, which I agree with.
And him pointing out that idea of like,
and for the record, I'm not tearing him down. He's just not as into structure as I am, and he's more into the mob than I am. So we don't line up that way. But
you're in scenes where you're like, I don't care about these characters. These characters suck to me.
Sometimes
I totally get it.
Or like I found Gangs in New York incredibly thrilling in terms of the acting and the actual visual aesthetic, but the story was just like stuff that happened, which I find is the case with him.
He is meandering. Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Goodfellas is like his best version of that to me.
It's very tight, yeah. But speaking of meandering, let's talk about The Departed. That's what I was going to say is, for my money, The Departed overlaps the most with things I'm already interested in, and I still really enjoyed it. I do remember first seeing it. Maybe this is just the way thrillers work, which I wanted to throw out. I remember first seeing The Departed being breathless, like truly the definition of edge of my seat. Like the moment where they have a silent phone call with each other,
I was good.
Like, oh, like a violin string, you know, in my mind was snapping. This time I felt none of that tension. Is that just a result of the Jack in a Box has been open? And I was wondering, can you think of a thriller that works over and over? I still felt
a little of that tension, but
that's a great question.
For me, it's always the ending of this that I still feel. A thriller that works over and over. Fuck.
Because comedies, famously, really good ones you can watch a lot, but they start to do diminishing returns because jokes are surprise based, and I feel like thriller is also.
This isn't a thriller.
I think,
this is, I think, in the same vein of what you're asking. I always get nervous at the end of Back to the Future. I'm always like, oh shit, is he gonna make it in time?
That's what I mean. The way that is edited,
that tension always works on me.
The one for me is No Country, the light under the hotel door when Llewellyn's seated on the bed and you know that Anton has the shotgun.
Oh, yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I think that's a larger question that deals about the psychology of why we like enjoy movies. Like to me, like because I will rewatch The Thing until I pass out, right? Mm-hmm. So that still works on me from like a thriller perspective. But I don't watch it for like who's it gonna be? Suspense is answered in movies, and so the answer of suspense, it's gone, it's fizzled. So I think it's fine that you didn't feel like I didn't feel much. Like I knew spoilers, like everyone dies, you know, like so it doesn't work on me in that way, I guess.
I still find that ending so well done and so shocking because of how it kind of gets doled out and how you get to this point where like, okay, fuck me, I guess. It's it's when Matt Damon kills the other informant where you're like, okay, I guess we're all dying here. Got it.
Like this, this is just going down the shitter. And it is super satisfying to see Dingham kill him. And I still find it really poetic that his last act is okay, and you can sort of interpret it one of two ways, which is, okay, I accept my death, or okay, let me tell some more lies. I can explain this. You know, it's sort of like somewhere in between those two deliveries, which I love.
The ultimate twist that Mark Wahlberg is the hero of the story.
Or at least the vengeance, the hand of God. But
can we all agree this is the best Mark Wahlberg?
We have, yes. Okay. And I really dislike him, so yeah.
He's so natural with those slurs.
Yeah.
You know?
I was gonna say I still thought he seems like he's acting. He always seems like he's acting. Like he's not the best actor in this by a long shot.
It works for the character because
But
the
it's the
character
closest to him
seems like
already,
he's
right.
acting. The character's putting up a
Oh,
front.
because it's like braggadocio that is not earned.
He's
Yeah.
playing a violent Boston racist who has something to prove to everybody, and wouldn't you know, it's his most natural role.
Right, and I'm saying,
That's
and he
what I'm
still
saying.
can't seem natural. That's what a
Yeah.
bad
That's
actor
my
he is
favorite
on
part.
camera.
My favorite part about Wahlberg in this is that others around him act very happy to have him around. Like he says something
Dude.
terrible, like
Alec
a
Baldwin-
12-year-old's dick.
Yeah, and Alec
Martin
Baldwin goes, he's really a nice guy usually. Don't judge him from this one
Yeah.
meeting.
And so often is when he's talking with Leo, he's like, Martin Sheen is just nodding. He's like, yep, that's coming from both of us.
yeah.
There's this subset of Boston guys who are very funny and quick this way, where they always have a zinger, and
Yeah.
it's kind of amazing.
these
Where you're
people.
like, how do you do this? How do you always
Yeah.
have a fucking thing?
Well, the classic
love-
is, fuck yourself. I'm too tired from fucking your wife. Oh, yeah? How's your mother? Good. She's tired from fucking my father.
The
They
scenes
are
where him and
straight up flirting
Baldwin.
in that scene.
yeah, they're in love.
They're
Can-
so very pleased with each other.
Can you
And they're
imagine?
like,
Can you imagine being an assistant on that set with Mark Wahlberg and Alec Baldwin?
yeah.
God, what a nightmare!
Don't get a coffee wrong. Actually, I know nothing about these men. It's just my zeitgeist brain going.
Well,
It would be funny if they're both like, my coffee is.
I mean,
all
they're
I, know,
both very
I mean, the negatives
no
I
face
know about
pleasant
Alec
people.
Baldwin are that he yelled at his daughter that she's a filthy pig and
Yeah.
killed someone on set. Those are the two biggies.
Yeah, and
those
he's
are
known
pretty
for his temper.
serious. Yeah.
It just seems like a nightmare, an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
They're also like one of them super liberal and one of them super conservative.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, that's
what
It'd
a
be awkward as
fucking-
shit.
It's just a nightmare set, I imagine. I can't imagine they liked each other.
I just learned
don't
about
think a
the
lot
Fury Road set for the first time and what a nightmare that was. The
Oh,
tension
yeah.
between the two leads. Yeah.
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 Scorsese deals with that really well all the time. He has like he's famous for like people in
Oh
his
yeah,
films
it makes you respect
hating each
directors
other.
because you often forget about what about directors who have to deal with difficult personalities and still get the great performance? That's
But-
something that's fully invisible unless you watch interviews and behind the scenes shit. And
The
it's like
thing-
that's cool.
Yeah, Scorsese to me is one of those only directors who could still go to Alec Baldwin and go like, "All right, do you want to be recast?" And he could. Like that's like it reminds me of watching this movie. Reminds me a lot of watching Eyes Wide Shut, which is two of the biggest celebrities of the time, Nicole Kidman and
Right.
and that other guy, Tom Cruise, somehow not the biggest thing in that movie, who's being completely overshadowed by fucking Stanley Kubrick, who could at any point just go, you know what, you're out of here. I don't need you, and mean it. And like
He's
this is the shame
show,
where it's like
right.
this is fucking Matt Damon, who was huge at this time, Leonardo, who's huge, being on their best behavior because they know
it's
like
Scorsese.
it's
you know,
yeah,
like it's the
exactly.
same effect of the Kubrick effect. It's like for some reason we respect some people more than others, and so like I kind of get it when like Jack Nicholson or like someone who has had senioritis for most of the end of their career, like Bruce Willis, he's just like, this is just a paycheck. We're not making art here. We're just doing.
And when they do
content.
something, I don't know, that's like Bruce Willis in Moonrise Kingdom, right? Where it's like, oh, okay, a little reminder that I can still act. Like I don't want to, but I can.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Everyone's always on. Like, yeah, we kind of just covered Drive Away Dolls, and it's like most of those actors are clearly like, oh, I'm in a Coen brother
Exactly.
movie. You know, like
I'm
I
gonna
have
have
to
a
act
blast.
this way. I have to eat up the scenery and stuff.
I haven't listened to that, but I really liked Drive Away Dolls. I really enjoyed that stupid movie. I thought it was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. But
We
this
were
isn't about
underwhelmed
pretty
and the
fun.
audience disagreed by and large. They
that. The
all
audience
liked
is
it.
right.
Yeah.
They're right.
The audience is right.
It was great. I loved that movie.
Sneaky in this movie. I think Matt Damon has one of his better performance because he has this. He's the only one who really got some. Everyone's like one dimensional. For some reason, he had more dimension to me because
Well-
he has this like real rage.
Well,
like he's a
and-
fox
yeah.
in the henhouse.
And
in his
also,
eyes.
it's a super huge emotional reveal to me that I love that at the end, before everything comes to a head, he briefly suggests, like for the first time, we see him fantasize. Like he's been so loyal, and then he goes to
Can I get out of this?
Vera Farmiga, whose name the character name I don't know. What if I became a lawyer and we left and like totally left and moved across country? And you're like,
right.
He does hate being under Jack Nicholson's thumb, but he hasn't shown that this whole time. He's an opportunist, but also he does fear. He does live in fear.
I think so. I hate to invoke modern times and Trump, but like I think what he represents,
the Charlie Chaplin movie,
he represents a guy who would like, even the way he talks a little like Kennedy. He has that Kennedy accent.
Yeah.
He's very charming. He's Matt Damon. We're playing into that versus Leonardo DiCaprio, who can be charming, but he's like a little rat in this. He's like wiry and he's stressed. And it's about that morality of the idea that Matt Damon is doing.
Yeah, he's like slimy as shit. Yeah.
But he's not touching it. He doesn't get his hands dirty most of the time.
He's impotently struggling to get power constantly, which is what having a Jack Nicholson
and one is by
and he talks about he talks about law school and stuff like that, and you can see in a more grounded world, a world that doesn't have poetic justice, this dude would become president someday.
Yeah,
like you can see that path for him, because I don't think he cares about Jack Nicholson. He just is an opportunist.
No, we see at the end that he's like, you know, you were like a father to me. Oh, you betrayed me? I'll gun you down right now. That's what's going on. Yeah.
The most emotional part.
He just plays the game.
Yeah. Or one of the most emotional parts, that moment where Billy Costigan sees the citizens folder, and you know, like, you just have to walk away, man. Like, you can get out of this, because he doesn't know, but all Matt Damon wants in that moment is to just move on. He's like, I got away with it. I can, you get the vibe that he's just going to become a cop after that, like just a regular cop.
Yeah. No, and I love that there's sneaky, like, if you look at their psychologies, it's from in the first like 20 minutes, you already get how these guys are. Like, and you just look at their cop school intro sequences, because notice they do a series of like Leo does a joke, and then Matt Damon does a joke, and all of the jokes that Matt Damon has is like fucking firefighters, a bunch of homos, you know, it's all tearing someone down and pushing people away constantly.
Well, and I love that it's pointedly firefighters, because even people who are like defund the police are like, well, firefighters you need. They fight fire. They're heroes. Everyone agrees they're heroes. And he's like, these fucking pussy-ass homo firefighters. You're like, dude.
Whereas look at
there's also that part where he's looking at the the State House. I should probably know the Gold Dome,
Massachusetts State House,
and the guy's like, "What are you thinking about?" And then he just goes like, "Firefighters, bunch of homos."
Yeah. So like he's covering because he's actually having feelings.
Yes, he's exactly. Like, he's thinking about aspirations and where he wants to end
and
up.
I want to get back to Abe's point, because it's midstream, and we'll never mention it again. But we talked about the end being good, and we just have to all say like, check. The last shot is still stupid as hell, right? With the rat on the banister.
Rats
like,
everywhere.
Stupid.
He's a fucking rat.
Yeah, I get what he was trying to do, because it's the most important thing in that shot is the State House again, right?
Yeah. Right, but that would work. It's gilded. Like, that's the image already. You don't have to put a rat on a hat.
You don't have to put a rat on. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That rat, by the way, has gotten some major work from Scorsese.
That's an important rat.
But my last kind of bit on that point is just, if you rewatch and look at Leonardo's characters' jokes, all of them are inclusive and sympathetic. He's laughing with his buddy about how the system is broken.
Yeah, you're a black guy in Boston. You don't need me to tell you how fucked
he's there witnessing it with you. Those are the jokes he makes. And it's just like, look at that. Contrast is awesome.
There's subtle stuff. There's like, it's interesting because movies are short. So I would say psychological subtlety often just comes down to a B level. Like, most characters only have an A level of psychology functioning. But I liked that there's one or two moments where that fork in the road is set between them, and it's used to show that he genuinely believes in public service. He thinks he's doing something good, and that's why he's doing it, as does Vera Farmiga. And Matt Damon thinks the idea of public service is silly. like is for suckers.
Yeah,
And
there's
he just
also
pretends he doesn't feel that way. I like that differentiation a lot.
I also like Leo is a smart guy pretending to be dumb. Damon is a dumb guy trying
guy
to be
Well,
smart.
yeah, and we
Exactly.
talked about Damon's great acting, but I got to throw it to Leo too. Like my note was just by the end of the thing,
totally.
they're both bringing it in terms of Leo acting like a guy who only lives in fear and is constantly looking over his shoulder and thinks every second there's going to be a gun to his head is a hard, subtle thing to do while you're also trying to act against that and, you know, pretend within the reality of the scene that you're cool. And then, like we said, Damon doing the I'm really charming, but deep inside I'm hollow and everything's spiraling.
because
yeah.
Leo
Great.
is on the side of good. Ultimately, Leo is trying to do good. And
Take
so
down a terrible person.
and so like he's feeling it, whereas Matt Damon doesn't give a fuck. He's a rat. He's a worm. So like he's acting so relaxed because like deep down he can't sleep at night, but he's in such a cushy position. I love how it's all through the lens also of being Boston guys. Like you said with the jokes, having empathy, they're all still Boston guy jokes. And I love that. The little things where she's like, why is the hardest patient the last patient the hardest? And he goes like, it's the end of the day. You're tired. It's not supernatural.
Yeah,
it's snarky. It's Boston, but it's also like intelligent and vibing with her.
I'm cutting through all the bullshit, telling you like it is, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta bring it up at least once and I'll move on. And I'm just extra sensitive because my dad's gay. So it's like Quentin with Django Unchained, right? I don't know the answer, but where do you guys land, or do you have thoughts on when a director writer is like, I'm going to throw in a bunch of slurs because that's how these people
That's
talk.
how they talk.
Like,
yeah.
Dave, was that, I don't know if you can
So
speak to the
I think
Boston
it's
experience
weird
at this
when
time,
it comes.
but it's weird to me that Leo, after we like him and he hasn't used any slurs, 80% of the way through the movie goes, I want my identity back, you two-faced F-A-G-G-O-T, which to me is like just is close to the N-word in terms of making me go, whoa. And it just feels like, well, now I don't like. I liked him a second ago. Why'd you do that?
I haven't looked into this. What I'll say is that there were certain characters they did this with. Matt Damon, Mark Wahlberg. I'm like, yes, that is a guy. Leo, it is abrupt. That isn't to say that this guy from Boston wouldn't do that, but I
Right.
think I agree with you that
But
pings
it's-
me every time. Where I'm like, we're in this
Same.
moment. I wonder if it was an improv.
Specifically, him doing it is what's odd to me. Yeah.
It
Me too,
feels,
yeah.
from a character standpoint, not unbelievable, just in the wrong direction. And when you're doing writing and trying to build a perfect arrow or a tip of the spear, you don't have any hairs.
It's
Or
weird.
it's like you've been talking to
Because,
someone
like-
for a long time and they're giving you really chill vibes, and then they say something racist, and you go, "Oh,
You
word!
go,
I didn't. I have to revise my
Okay.
understanding of you." Okay.
I think I
Right.
probably told this story. I once, Robert Evans once thought I said the N word in the second day we knew each other, and I still remember his face because we lived together. We were starting at crack. And I said, "Do you think those neighbors mind?" And he thought I
And
said
he's
the
like,
N word.
"Holy
And I remember, I
shit."
still
And that's
remember
like,
he had this smile and this sustained smile, and he just went, "What did you just say?"
I'm
And I
not
repeated, and he was like,
believing
"Oh,
it.
thank God."
That is so funny.
Yeah.
I remember there was a time during the 2020 pandemic where we were all playing video games and we played Rust, and there was a moment where we were all building because we had a PvE server, which for people, it's just we go into this super safe space and we just build things, and we're building arenas to play deathmatch in. So it's a wonderful mechanic where you can build these levels essentially.
It's adult
when I
playing with
zoomed-
action figures. You can just
Point
say
of the
that.
story is Dave was there and remembers this. We zoomed out and looked at everyone's creations at the end of the day, and mine was very clearly a swastika because I had not built in mind looking at it from the top.
right.
I was just building clearly in its base. It was more complex, but it was a
That's so
swastika,
good.
and I had to explain for 45 minutes to my best friends that I didn't do it on purpose.
In terms of building design, a swastika is very efficient. It's a
Yeah.
very good building design, and they took that from us. You know,
This is not where I wanted.
I was going to say, speaking of
podcast to
efficient,
go.
I want to throw out something about The fucking Departed, which is, found it interesting that the way it's structured almost reminds me more of a farce or the tightness of A Noise Is Off or an Arrested Development than a
Yeah.
traditional thriller, because there's so much serendipity intentionally to make the setups perfect, like perfectly symmetrical. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
right.
this time I was really like, this is really like a good episode of Frasier if it was serious instead
Mathematical
of jokes.
Frasier.
Mathematically,
yeah.
it hits the same beats. Yeah.
I see
Scorsese,
that.
I think a lot of his stuff, while meandering, are still kind of like fables or like epics, where he's like, these are, again, that's I think why you look at the mob movies and they feel more lighthearted. He mystifies these things, and like he. The vibes are very important, and also what he's trying to say. Like in this one, it just feels like it's about that contrast between the cops and the criminals, right? Like we were talking about that opening where like he's going to the police school and hearing like dispassionate explainers of what a bullet does to you versus Jack Nicholson shooting people and going like they fail funny. And it's
Yeah.
showing like the same dispassion for violence done in different
Both
lenses and
sides
stuff like
are
that.
sociopathic. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's less about, weirdly enough, it's less about realism and more about like, you know, the vibes of it. Like the use of Dropkick Murphys, just to be like, this is a bot. Like that song has
This
no
is an Irish bar
significance
song. Yeah.
other
Design-
than
yeah.
it's the song that plays like if you go to a Red Sox game, they blast that song. So it's a song that's like, we're in Boston. This is Boston.
Right.
Boston time, Boston.
Yeah,
As
it's Boston
Jack
time. That's the original title
says in
for
the
that.
first 5 minutes, which totally encapsulates everything. I think it's the full point of the movie. Cops, criminals, when you're facing a loaded gun, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Which I guess is the main takeaway. Like if you start from the presupposition that you want to do a who done it or who's gonna do it cat and mouse, where people's identities are reversed and flipped
Right.
and they're both double undercover, I think the cops and criminals are ultimately the same, is as good as you can get as a message to
It's
extract
very
from
much
that.
like
What
The
is-
Wire, you know, in its
Yeah,
approach.
What is
There's a-
worth noting?
It's also
Sorry.
Peter and Ender Wiggin. For
No, you go.
Ender's
I'll
Game.
go
Oh
ahead.
yeah. It
Yeah,
should
it
be
is.
worth noting that he does make a difference, moral difference, by showing Martin Sheen versus Jack, the two daddies, basically, Crime
Right,
Daddy
yeah,
and Police. Martin Sheen is genuinely a caring person. He's very nurturing towards Leonardo DiCaprio, right?
Yeah, but
and
I can't
so, like,
forgive him for
you see that
he's-
versus Jack and Matt Damon. I also like that Jack Nicholson is the one who looks at Leo and goes like, why don't you make yourself something better than this? And he doesn't think that about Matt Damon.
Well, the
He
cops also
no one
say
tells
that to
Matt
him.
Damon, why do you better yourself? Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
so,
the
like-
the monologue where Wahlberg tears into him is actually a backhanded
Oh, yeah, you're an
compliment in the
astronaut.
sense that they're like, "You're too smart and high class to work here."
Which
Fuck
is a-
you. You think you're
a
better
real
than me?
thing.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. Connecticut cops, there's a lawsuit.
We don't
Look
want
it up.
smart cops. Yeah. It'll
Yeah.
cause problems for us.
There's
It's
a
very
great-
LA Confidential. With,
But you
Guy
see,
Pearce.
they even do it in a different way where they're like, you're not good. You're too smart. You smarty pants. And then Jack Nicholson is just like, you shouldn't be here. You should be doing something better. Have you ever thought about doing something better? He says it like once, and then like that's enough for him. But
well,
There's
that's
a,
what makes Scorsese at least a very good director, which is he'll say stuff once and only once. Like he speaks
Yeah.
to the top of your intelligence, which I admire.
There's a great example of that, or I think that like because I love how it's got that Scorsese like jumping between things constantly. Like the movie is a montage, but he juxtaposes just like he does with all like everyone in this movie. But our main juxtaposition, Matt Damon's talking to Alec Baldwin, and Damon's like just had success, broke through a case, and he's like, it's a win. It's tied up in a bow. And Baldwin's response to him, because Baldwin is the other daddy who represents the like Damon can be on the success route because he checks all the boxes, and he goes, I think you're a cop, my son, and he gives him
Yes.
he does the cross on him. That's immediately followed by a scene with Leo and Jack Nicholson, where Jack Nicholson says, "You know what a bookie does, don't you?" And Leo is like, "Yeah, he pays you." So what they're both doing at the same time is learning that they're learning how to play the system, and the system is merely just to ingratiate the higher ups.
Yes.
That's how you will succeed.
There's a lot of that.
Kiss the fucking ring. That's it.
Again, there's
on both sides. Power is a rigid
sides.
pyramid. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like you said, it's all montage where it's like when Martin Sheen is offering Leo dinner and being nurturing, we cut to Jack Nicholson doing cocaine and being coke blind, or like when he's getting his hand wrapped in the hospital for getting, his interrogated by the mobsters. We see Matt Damon on his nice date, like it's all just showing like, how their one life is clearly easier by being less moral, but you're right, is the same basic principles are throughout. I just like that the movie isn't just saying, it's all the same. It's a little more nuanced than that, ultimately.
No, it is. It stacks up evils. Like, it does say that Jack Nicholson is the worst of all because he's completely, like, he sells out his own people. And it actually clicked for me this time more concretely what his scheme is. And I like understanding it. So I just want to lay it out. I don't know. It just clicked for me this time for the first time that he basically runs a betrayal pipeline. So, like, he grooms people to become members of the mob, has them commit crimes on his behalf, then turns them in to the FBI for those crimes.
Yeah, when he's done with them.
And the FBI accepts it because it fulfills their quota. But those people never would have even been criminal. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
He's literally taking innocent people and putting them on the pipeline to go to prison. He just runs a crime factory for money, and the FBI lets him do it so their numbers go up. It's just so line go up, which is very wire.
He does have like Mr. French. There's implies that there's people who are close to him.
Ray Winstone's so good in that.
He's so good.
Yeah, he is.
But like I always got the implication that Leo. I always got the implication that Leo was never going to be turned in. That he was going to be in the world of Jack Nicholson. I feel like his intent was, I am not going to turn this kid in. Matt Damon. Matt Damon. It's like he clearly doesn't care about him. But Leo, I feel like could have been a number 2 down the line.
Or maybe Matt Damon would go now, and then Leo would be Matt Damon for a while, and then he'd go. I do feel like he's like Trump, meaning he will ultimately betray you.
He'll throw you away if it's convenient for him, basically, I think, ultimately.
And by random chance, that time will inevitably come if you hang out around him long enough.
Right. I also love that there is a work-like kind of process of the I don't know. We've probably all heard, if you follow any like film criticism things in the last 2 decades, that in Departed there's this clever thing that Scorsese does a bunch of times in this movie, which is at some point in a frame you'll have the person, usually it's like a medium close-up or something, and then on the background or the foreground is a very clear indication of an X pattern,
right?
And on characters who are doomed,
about to get got. Yeah.
And I watched it this time knowing that, going like, oh yeah, let's think about every fucking character.
Yeah, as Martin Sheen falls from the building, he passes X's. Also, the very first one is Beyond X's. Leo is in jail, and you get the bars as very clear vertical lines. So, he's not doomed, and you immediately hard cut to Matt Damon walking by an X at his new apartment.
Right, yeah. It's just he did it as many times as he could, basically, which I like that tactic, to be honest. I also love a lot of the God. I mean, it's Scorsese, so there's a lot of Catholicism happening. But Matt Damon, whenever his pager goes off, I think they're playing a thing where it's like he can't hear it because pager is like a vibration, so you don't know exactly where it is in the initial seconds when it goes off sometimes. But he always looks up, like he's looking to God.
Oh.
And the only person who ever pages him is Jack Nicholson.
Right, the pager is for that, yeah.
Yeah.
He has,
and he
that
calls
whole-
him dad. That's his cover.
calls
It's
him
so
dad,
transparent. Yeah.
I thought that too. Where it's like if I were a cop, after a certain amount of time, I'd be like,
You
I
talk to
wonder
your
if,
dad a lot.
yeah, I wonder if you're
All
the
the time.
rat based off. You always you always call your dad,
And then you
right
step
before
out
a
quickly.
stakeout.
Yeah.
Seems like you're
And
a
you're like,
rat.
I just love my dad. I like to keep him up to date. Well, you don't love your dad? You're going to stand here and tell me?
I love canceling on my dad.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
like to hear the disappointment in his
my
voice.
thing.
Yeah.
No, dad, I have cop
love-
shit.
What
I love
else? There's-
Scorsese as his. Well, it's Thelma. His editing. I just love how. I always forget this, and then I watch Scorsese film and remember that it's like he's almost very film school, and his, there was the circle wipe that they do in two very intentional moments
man.
that are so obvious. Or
Yeah,
like when they're
irises,
playing
yeah.
Shipping Out to Boston in the intro, and they're like, "What do we do? Fade it out? No, let's just cut it. Let's just cut it suddenly."
See,
I love that
don't
shit.
know. Everything is a construct in human culture, obviously. So I don't know what shaped my sensibilities to be like, the iris
That's
out.
good.
Get
That's
that
not-
Looney
yeah.
Tunes bullshit out of here. What the fuck is that?
No, I love it.
That
everyone's
hard
got 'em.
cut.
It's
That
taste.
hard cut is rad. That's cool. I like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
I
Yeah,
just
but
like
it's
how
just
bombastic
maneuvers.
he is, where he's like,
I do like that he makes
he's
swings,
so
yeah.
weird. Yeah, he's so weird. Like I don't want to spoil Killers of the Flower Moon, but the ending of that is like a fucking art house ending where you're like,
Yeah,
oh
but-
right.
whatever. That's a separate conversation. I feel like he's just lampshading the bad thing he did at the end of Killers of the Flower Moon. It's like
I think
just drawing attention to the fact that you're aware you were doing something racist does not absolve you of.
no, I think
It
he
wasn't
worked.
your place
From
to
what
tell
I
that
read,
story.
he worked with a lot of Native American tribes, and like the movie
Good.
was made.
I hope he
and-
gave them
and,
lots
like,
of money.
and it was made in that interest. And I think a movie like that specifically, I think that's a good ending of pointing out that it's always the white people telling the stories, just like he is doing. You're right. It doesn't absolve him. Like that movie is great. I hope that there's more Native American voices telling that story, right? Like I would rather that than that, Scorsese doing it.
Right, and then it's easy to say if he didn't make it, no one would get to, and that's what's wrong with the system as a whole. This
And
is a
you're
whole
probably not
separate
wrong
argument
there,
that I don't know the right answer, but
It's a conversation.
Doesn't
I
relate
think-
to The Departed.
I think he did it better than other directors have done it, right?
Fucking
Like he
fine.
seems at least aware of it.
Yeah,
Fine then. All right.
I really
We all
liked.
agree.
I really loved how Jack Nicholson's like big plan, the big scheme to sell the microprocessors. Won't say the slur, but he goes, if these Chinese gentlemen want to nuke Taiwan anytime this century, they better shape up and
Yeah.
give me $1 million. I was
gonna
like,
say.
that's literally Dr. Evil shit, man.
Yeah, $1 million.
That's like, and that's not, it's in 1990s or 2000s money. It's still not a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
To sell
I
out
mean,
your
for
whole
these
country
guys-
and
I mean,
nuke
it's a-
Taiwan.
He's selling what appears microchips to the triads. Like it,
And
like,
their
that feels
government,
like a
where it's
bigger
like this
deal than $1
government-
million.
Well, as Alec Baldwin says at the stakeout, microprocessors. I don't know what they are. You don't know what they are. Who gives a fuck?
I'm pretty sure he's doing treason. Like he's doing a
Yes,
light treason.
That's definitely
he's using
executable.
the
Not even a
Patriot
light
Act,
treason, yeah.
and he's like enjoying it. He's
No,
like,
he's
I love
selling
it. I fucking
weapon
love it.
systems to our enemies. Yeah.
Yeah. I love, or not love, but this is a weird observation. Jack Nicholson's character is another person who I probably wouldn't have accepted a bunch of homophobic slurs, but his old timey racism works, where he's like boomer racist
Yeah.
against these Asian
In
people.
this country.
in
Yeah,
this
yeah,
country,
you just like,
keeps
all right,
repeating
old
it.
man.
Okay, dude.
It's
You
perfect.
put him in the,
Okay,
in the
Dad.
basket.
I
Yeah.
also like,
Wave your flag, dude.
this is also a subtle thing, but he is doing a Boston accent. It's just a very
I noticed
subtle, more central Massachusetts
he does
accent.
it way harder in the VO, as if they recorded the VO after and he had really gotten into his stride. Like if you notice,
But-
the opening narration is even Bostonier.
Alec Baldwin also is doing a little one.
His is super light though. Yeah.
I appreciate Martin Sheen being
I
like,
can't
no,
tell.
I'm not doing any of that shit.
I'm so bad at accents. It just sounds like he's doing a Jack
So,
Nicholson accent.
a really easy sign. The moment that when I first watched the movie, I realized is when he says the John Lennon quote. He says "tubar" instead of tuba.
A
He
tuba.
says, "Give me a fucking
tubar."
tubar." That was
And
like
I'll
the
get ya.
the sign. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. He's like, I don't want to be a product of my environment. You know, like that's just how I imagine him. He said it exactly that. Right?
He still
That's how he
feels
said
like.
it.
I love he has a leopard print tie. I love when he's doing the art.
Yeah.
When he's like a little kid, like where he's like spitting on it and burning it. I love how they really play up. Like they use
he
the Jack
sings
Nicholson
Irish tunes.
Was anything else uniquely Massachusetts to the point that you were impressed with the attention to detail?
Oh, well, this is from that era. Do you remember when we were just doing art house Massachusetts movies, Boston specifically? Like, I know it started with Good Will Hunting, but there was like The Town, there was
Yeah.
Mystic River. I
Yeah.
feel like there was one other where we were
He
all
was
like,
a cap at Leia for Jordan Mash.
Well, his
yeah, it
daughter was
became-
in there.
it became, Shutter Island. It became like a stereotype, right? Where like,
Shutter
A guy
Island
doing
off
a
the
Boston
coast of Boston?
accent?
Oh,
Oh,
just the
yeah, yeah.
accent. Okay.
New Englanders.
it was a stereotype where doing a Boston accent was going to get you an Academy Award, right?
Right.
And so that's all to say that like this wasn't shot in Boston. I believe this is the movie that actually made Massachusetts change its laws because Massachusetts was
So that
famously really
Martin
oppressive
Scorsese
to
can't
film.
come here. Oh, okay.
Well, they were really
Yeah.
oppressive to films being shot there. They didn't like it. And so like I think this is the one where they're like, this movie's about Boston and they didn't shoot it in Boston. We should probably change our laws to make movies a little more accessible here.
Yeah, so that people will shoot in Boston again.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all to say that this
good
is
for
basic.
everyone.
This is pretty broad strokes of like it's Boston.
I was just
Dropkick
wondering in terms
Murphys.
of whether Scorsese's obsessively, like Wes Anderson will do intense,
right.
detailed references to whatever. Just feeling it out.
Sure.
Another question: so at the movie theater, I still don't know the answer to this. Did Francis really show him his real cock? Because it looks like a rubber cock. Is that
I think
a
he
poorly
brought.
shot?
I think he brought a prop.
He brought a
bunch of
prop,
props,
or
I think.
canonically, that's his. Okay,
He brought a
That's what I'm
prop.
trying
He
to
brought
figure
a
out.
prop.
I mean,
It's bothered me
yeah.
every time I've seen the movie.
To be honest, I always had assumed because it's the kind of thing that he would do, but I haven't.
But I'm like, he
Until
brought a
you
rubber
asked that
dick
question,
all the way
I didn't
here.
think. Yeah, that
I
could be
keep
his
thinking
dick.
he's kind of the Joker in this. Like
He-
it
I was
feels
gonna-
like
he's crazier than the Joker.
yeah.
he
Um,
would beat the Joker.
I think. So here's my headcanon: is that's a porn theater. They probably have a sex shop next door. And
Yeah.
so maybe he was just like, because he says I own the place. Maybe he saw it and he was like, I got a bit.
He just pulled
I
it
can
off the
do.
shelf.
I mean,
yeah,
he's- a guy like that
That
has
works.
clear access to dildos galore.
At all
Yeah.
times.
That's what
yeah.
I'm saying.
That's
Yeah.
a man who can get you a dildo if you need
Yeah,
one.
he's just coming out his ears. I also wanted to talk about. Oh, we were talking about little strategies. You know, like the editing, cut here, fade out there, iris there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
all
These
the
are
little
all-
strategies.
These are all chump change to some of the greatest. Like, I don't know if I can't remember if it's in Infernal Affairs. I don't think it is. Just one of the coolest maneuvers in this movie is late reveals. There's a whole conversation that's very ominous that Leo's in when he's at the bar, and they're just like all talking about like there's a rat.
I
kind of
smell
thing.
a rat. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's early on, and they show at the end of it that he's wearing a wire instead of at the beginning where it's like,
Yeah.
all right, he walks in and he's got a wire. So you retroactively go like, oh shit, he's really good
yeah.
because he kept his cool. You didn't think he wasn't like Leonardo DiCaprio wasn't like performing like I'm wearing a wire and I'm worried about it like most TV would do, you know, like he's just retroactively. I just like that maneuver so much. It's
I like-
just is kind of a cool way to do that.
It's less
The reverse
about
of dramatic irony kind of thing.
yeah, it's less about tension, more about showing the pure stress on him. It felt like because
Right.
like I love the scene where he's just at the airport too, where it's just like,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
he's
he
like,
was
"I
gonna
will
fucking
leave."
yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny.
I want to talk about fucking what's her name? Vera Farmiga?
Oh, yeah.
Farmiga. I love
Interesting
that.
character.
Yeah, poor her. Stuck between raw dogging Matt Damon or Leo.
Yeah, poor her.
Yeah, I always forget it's her in this because like she did like Orphan and The Conjuring, and she's
Right.
like horror lady, and I'm like, oh, kind of want you to do more like Scorsese level shit.
Yeah, fantastic character. I kind of like that she's a little bit impotent like the rest of them. Like
She's also a liar.
She gets, yeah, but like in the way that is like, we're all liars, right? You know, like,
Right.
but
The mundane form, not the secret
she's-
agent
yeah,
form.
she's
She's
not
also not. She's not like, oh, we can't, Leo. She leans into it immediately.
totally.
She's
like, I can
not,
date. I can casually fuck multiple guys. Yeah.
The vibe you get is that like much like Matt Damon looked at her and said like, I mean, it's the conversation that Alec Baldwin has, right? Like having a wife is good. No one, you know, they know your dick works and stuff like
Wait,
that.
I have that
It's-
one. I want to say it.
Oh,
Let
yeah,
me
it's
find
a
it. Let me
great
find
line.
it. Marriage is good. People see you as stable. You're not a homo. Ladies see the ring and they know you must have some cash and your cock works. Oh, it's working. Overtime, sir. Good,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad to hear that.
Right. And what we
I like
know-
that.
I love that you're
What's
reading
funny
of
is
it.
the end. Yeah, the congratulating him. on it.
Yeah.
That's good
has
to
been
hear. Yeah.
This has been a good hangout session
Yeah,
between
yeah.
brothers.
And what we know is his dick isn't working.
His
Right, right. She was talked about how it happens to a lot of
Yeah.
guys.
Well,
And so
but
it's
then
this
he
idea
did
of these
get-
two people.
They are pregnant though.
Yeah. Well,
so
he
his
gets
dick
it. He gets it
does.
going.
It's it's,
But it's-
daddy rules.
It's all to say that they're both keeping appearances, right? Like they're
Right.
both kind of doing it because it's the thing to do. He's charming. He might be a politician one day. That's his aspirations. She's charming. She's a doc. He always says, "Oh yeah, she's a doctor." When he describes her, it's what she does before he like describes that he actually likes her. And so like they're both kind of lying to themselves, and she, when she's with Leo, she's not hiding that fact. Like she literally says, like, I'd lie. Like he's like, what would happen if he came in and saw us? So she knows exactly what she's doing. She doesn't care about him that much. It makes the ending like weirdly convenient. Like again, the ending is almost idealistic that Matt Damon would get taken down.
And
as
that he
opposed
Yeah,
would
I had a
successfully
question
blow
for
the
that.
lid off everything and escape unscathed.
Yeah, it's more
Yeah.
likely they would just have
I-
this loveless marriage. He would continue being the rat he is, and so on.
I have a big question about that because this time something that pinged me, and maybe you guys can help me find the path, is there's this sense before Marky Mark comes and kills Matt Damon at the end, this kind of poetic justice final maneuver of the film. There's a sense before that he's gotten away with it. Agreed? Like
He
Yeah.
thinks
he's
that's I'm in the clear. I made it. Yeah.
My question is that Vera Farmiga still has all of the
Oh,
things that
she could-
show
Yes.
she can blackmail her, so she's just actively not being a good guy and turning in like
She's letting it slide for a while.
Someone
I
who
think.
has
Yeah.
done treason
Again, I
against
don't-
the state.
I think she also cares about, like, I think at the end
she
they do
wants to be
the
with Matt Damon.
they do
Well,
the
also
third
in my
man
head
ending,
canon,
right?
In my
They
head
do
canon,
the-
you got to think about the relationship from her point of view, because she does know that he like works with the FBI and is undercover in various situations. So even after hearing, like when he says, "I can explain," I could think of him explaining it. Or, you know, even after everything blows up, he could be like, that stuff is technically true, but I was undercover in that situation. Like anyway, my headcanon is that that's the card he pulls and that's what
It's
keeps her
hard.
there.
They do-
Yeah.
They do the third man thing where she walks by him, and like
Yeah.
if they're invoking that movie, it's to show like you're nothing to me. You're a stranger. We're strangers.
Right.
But I also kind of think like again, it's like that thing where like Leo's dead. It's like, what are you going to do? Go after this cop? Like, you're not a cop. Like, that's a dangerous fucking game to play. I can see a version where, yeah, she ends up back with him. She's mad at him, but eventually she is able to lie to herself about what that was or something like that. Like, I bet she could easily tell herself that lie. We don't know because it's cut short. But
I
like,
like that.
she
Yeah.
is sort of a liability. I think,
She's a liability, yeah.
and that's that question of like, man, what would have happened next? maybe he would have.
Maybe it would have actually gone poorly, and it wouldn't.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't. Yeah,
It makes that
that's
ending
what happened.
Great, because the ending is a twist where you're like, oh, okay, so the bad guy wins. I see what movie this is, and then you're like,
everyone's just doing what they want to do, and people kill people.
Right.
I want to do another one of this game where I ask another question about a character, and you can help me. There's a character named Timothy Delahunt, who is Mark Rolston. He's the guy who gets shot during the kind of final stint, and they say he's the cop. He's the undercover cop.
It's the guy they pinned it on.
And we have that
This is
scene
Boggs.
where
It's
he
Private
talks,
Drake. Sorry, it's Drake from Aliens.
It's Shawshank Redemption. There's a conversation between Leo and Mark Rolson, who are like, he's like, ask me why I didn't tell anybody, right?
And yeah, I know what you're gonna say.
And,
I think.
Well, the question is he a cop?
Yes.
Or was he about to say something like, I don't, because there was a previous conversation they had. So that the point B of a already started A conversation is, does he have it in him to kill somebody? And that would be, I guess, the only other argument I can see of like, that's why he's like, I know you're the rat, but like,
I think this is a cigar.
I can't kill you.
I think it's a cigar. I think he's a cop, because I think that reflects.
I know the answer, by the way.
Oh, I think that reflects the reveal at the end that you don't realize there's another
ask?
mole.
Just tell the story. I think he is definitely a cop. But what's funny to me is, instead of saying that with your dying breath, why do people always be cryptic and shit? Say I'm a cop. I'm an undercover cop. Or if you're not, say whatever you mean to say, dude. Say what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
it's your last breath.
Yeah,
pull my finger.
Do a joke. Do a
do
cool
a bit, dude.
Joke.
Do a cool dad joke.
No. I mean, yeah, you're right. I should have just given the answer. Well, it's because the answer is as you'd expect from Scorsese. He's like, there's an interview with him where he's like, yeah, it could be either one. Like, he's
no,
like, I don't know. It's interesting to me both ways. And that's always feels like I always want an answer, but I'm also like, we should give them the ability to do that. They're making a lot of decisions.
Yeah.
Directors,
I think he's a cop.
I think he's a cop.
I just think it reflects the idea that both sides have multiple plans.
It makes the math work, but it fucks up other math for me, because now we're straining. Like, I feel a little bit like everyone's a cop. Everyone's in on it.
Well, but on the other side, they find out that other cop is a Jack Nicholson guy. I think that's the climax of blending and saying, look, they're all the same. Literally, to the point that they multiple have switched sides. It's all nothing. It's a circle jerk. It's a game of cops and robbers.
And I understand that there's a farcical element of that. It just feels a little bit like it is almost a sketch.
It should have ended. It should have ended with them all
is
on
anyone
that
not a cop? Yeah.
Yeah, just being like, okay, who isn't a cop?
Who actually?
And then the other guy's like, so who works for the mafia? Oh, we all do. We can stop shooting at each other. Okay.
Yeah. Except for one guy who's like, I'm CIA actually. Shit.
Shit.
I'm on the wrong rooftop. I should be over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on the wrong rooftop.
There's another. They look over. There's another rooftop of guys.
Oh,
there's another Boston guy.
The cast from The Shield is doing a deal up there.
Go fuck yourself.
Oh, that's cute. You guys should make that sketch. Make that sketch.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. Fly back to 2012.
Yeah, make that sketch.
Denzel Washington walks in going, I'm fucking King Kong. And you're like, this is too much. We got to wrap this up.
Let's go. I think I don't think it's a mistake that like Leo is the only person who's like straight with things, right? Who doesn't want to play this game, who isn't out for himself. Like, like Jack Nicholson, you learn, is also a rat, while talking about how rats are terrible. Like they're all shameless.
Well, and Ray Winstone says the whole country is rats, and every character in the movie is a rat.
And again,
more or less, except for like 3.
Just random. Yeah, the vast majority of people we get
the
to
Trumpism stuff, where it's like Jack Nicholson, Matt Damon ultimately he kills a man who just saved his life, because he's in it for himself. He can't fucking.
He's like, I need to wrap up these loose ends. I just need to get out of this trap. Yeah. I think the writing's very good, which Scorsese didn't write it, so I wanted to shout out some lines. Is that all right? And then I'm done.
Yeah.
I really like. It's amazing how charming and effortlessly flirtatious, because that's not something I would expect Scorsese to be able to do well. But very briefly, Matt Damon hits on Vera Farmiga, and I buy that she would be into it. Like he's got good game. When she goes, well, do you want my card? I'm a detective. I'll find you. No, just kidding. I need the card. It helps.
It's so
and
good.
It's cute.
and then at dinner, he says something that's charming, but also in retrospect is chilling because he actually means it. It's not a joke. It's like the Louis C.K. effect. Oh, I'll always have a job. I'll just start arresting innocent people. You have no idea. I'd arrest you right now. I don't give a shit. And you're like, that's totally true.
That's totally true. Maybe you're into Boston guys,
Yeah.
Michael.
I really liked
It's very Boston, yeah.
the unique tension between, it reminds me of like Waiting for Godot or the terseness of plays like that. But I like the unique tension between Nicholson and Leo when he says, I knew your father. Yeah, do you know he's dead? Oh, I'm sorry. How'd he go? He didn't complain. Yeah, that was his problem. Who said he had a problem? I just said he had a fucking problem.
And later when he's
Great
like, your
delivery.
father saw us here, yeah.
Yeah.
He'll kill
That
like
feels
6 men.
very
and
Scorsese
he could do it.
in general.
A Wahlberg.
So those.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just shout out William Monahan is the guy who did the adaptation, who is from Boston, and so that's why it is very Boston.
Authentic.
He also wrote a movie called Edge of Darkness, and I only point that out. It's a Mel Gibson movie, and that's unfortunate. It was shot in the town I was born. It's about Mel Gibson living in Boston, and then his daughter goes to Northampton, Massachusetts. It's by name in the movie, which is really cool, and it's a crime thriller in the town I was born in, which is really funny because the town's made to look really sinister in the movie, and it's actually just like a really like a super gay hippie town. Like it's just very, very liberal Massachusetts, happy vibes, and they're like, this is like a dark town with a secret.
This is the
and it's
town.
very funny.
We're scared of the Southies.
But that's that's you were talking about things I noticed about Boston. That movie is the weirder one because again, it's my town by name, being a character in a movie. It's real weird.
And then shout out because we haven't to Kevin Corrigan, who plays the shitty cousin. Who plays the shitty cousin or brother or roommate in everything he's in, and is very good. He's a very funny actor.
Yeah, he has the best job. Is that they're like he's like calls ahead and goes, "Do I need to shower for this?" And they're like, "No, just get up and come in.
Get it? Just come in and act weird, like a little weird." Yeah, that's all I do. So back to lines. Who the fuck are you? I'm the guy that does his job. You must be that other guy.
You must be that other guy. I want to throw one in.
Go ahead, please.
You probably have it written down. Probably my favorite one, or the one I remember laughing the most in theater was, I'm going to go have a smoke right now. You want to smoke? You don't smoke, do you? What are you, one of those fitness freaks, huh? Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. No, I didn't have that, but that's a good one. Yeah. I also like to contrast how he flirts with Vera Farmiga. The way that Leo gets with Vera Farmiga is he looks around her apartment and says, you don't have any cats. And she says, no, I don't. And he goes, I like that. Cut to them like fucking.
That's another contrast I need to point out, which is very obvious, which is Matt Damon sees her old pictures and goes like, oh, God, no, we're not putting these up because he's ashamed of where he comes from.
And then Leo's like, this is a good picture of you or whatever.
Immediately zooms in on who she is.
Because it shows that he wants to hide who he is.
He also doesn't like cats because he's a fucking rat.
Sure. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Last one I got is, I think is just a great line for if you're going to do an almost farcically mathematical cat and mouse game. I love that Matt Damon at one point is navigated into a situation where his character can say to Vera Farmiga, you can trust me. I'm good at lying, right? Those are opposite statements. And I love that they're able to fuse them together, and that exemplifies him so well.
Right.
You can trust me. I'm good at lying.
Yeah, exactly. Like I love the fusing, like you say, where it's just like one after another. That
you've gotten to the Orwellian point where it's like good is bad, truth is lie, which is cool.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's a good movie. I like it.
It's pretty good. It's pretty fun.
Pretty good. I say this whenever I talk about a Scorsese movie. I think I'm a really big fan of Scorsese, and I forget it constantly. What I mean by that is I don't think about Scorsese, and then I watch one of his movies and go like, "This is really good." And it's like I've said that for like 95% of the movies he's made, where I'm like. I just love Scorsese films is what it really comes down to. I'm like,
you should have put
really
the title
good.
card earlier. That's a gripe.
Oh, I love late title cards.
You love
That's
the
my
20-minute
fetish.
in title card. Where you're
I
like,
remember
whoa,
watching this movie
I
for the
knew
first
I already
time.
knew it was The Departed, man. Now we're saying it's The Departed.
You gotta understand. I was into punk, and I was from Massachusetts, so Dropkick Murphys I've seen several times.
So that moved
they're
you
a delight.
when it hit.
Shipping out to Boston is kind of unfortunate because that's. I don't think that's anywhere near their best song, but that's the one that got them
Right, it's
on
like
the map.
I love Bare Naked Ladies, but it's like playing 1 week and you go
Exactly.
whatever, it's fine. I
But-
guess.
I love that one.
But this is all to say that I remember being drawn into this movie the first time I watched it, and then that starts zooming in. And I always thought about Scorsese has used punk. He did Sid Vicious's My Way and Goodfellas, if you remember. Every now and then he'll throw in a punk song, and it's delightful. And this, I was just like, of fucking course. Oh shit, Dropkick Murphys. And then when they go right into it with the Departed title, I was just like, oh, that is for me. That is just absolutely delightful. I like it when the title comes in when you have forgotten that there was no title. When it's that late and you're like, right. Titles.
I want it so that I notice how late it is.
Yeah,
that's
I want
that's
it
my
10 minutes
shit.
before the movie
I
ends.
feel
Give
like
me a
it's
late
distracting.
fucking title. That's punk, dude. That's what
Yeah.
I'm getting from you right now. Which
I love a good late title because
Yeah,
it is
no,
really
it's,
like a game of chicken where you're like, how late can I put this title?
Some people do it at the very end, like Drag Me to Hell. They
Oh,
don't
well,
even
that
do an
doesn't count.
opener.
Yeah, then you shot the man.
Wow.
That's what I mean.
Where's the
It's a
line
game-
then?
Exactly.
Right at the end,
That's why I
pushing
like
it all.
it.
Like it would count if it was 1 minute before the end. That would be weird and jarring. So that counts because that takes chutzpah.
It does take. That's true. That takes balls.
But putting it at
But,
the end is the same as putting it at the beginning, I would say.
I'm trying to look to see like where I looked online to see like what's the
That's
latest
right.
title
I
has
just feel
come
like
in.
I don't mean to
get-
Tom rhyme in this, but I got shit to do.
I feel like we'll just keep moving the goalposts.
What do you guys
until-
want to talk about next?
Well, I just wanted to say, just because you were talking
Just
about
stuff?
music and you're, cruelly taking over the podcast with your punk thoughts.
Mhm.
Just kidding. This is the third time that Martin Scorsese has used the Rolling Stones.
Give me shelter. He's fucking
Yeah.
obsessed with Give Me Shelter.
3 times. Goodfellas, Casino, and this.
And of course,
So
famously,
sick of Rolling
Hugo
Stones.
when the robot breakdances and it does Give Me Shelter.
Give me shelter.
Rape, murder. I'm Hugo.
I'm Hugo.
I learned whimsy. Yeah.
I feel like Scorsese, the way he
Just
does
a
music,
shot
he's like a
away.
music nerd. He loves
He's a
doing
Quentin.
music. And and I feel like most of the time it's fitting. So like this one, it's also fitting, right? Because it starts in like, I don't know, the 80s, 70s. And so there it's, it annoys me, but it's valid, right?
You know what it is we're the youth going like, that's so cringe, Dad.
It's the thing where like I think about this a lot where it's like, but since boomers had their talons in movies for way too long, that's why it's like we have so many fucking Vietnam movies, right? So many
Yeah.
movies that are like the 70s, man, those were great. Finally becoming our time because we're starting to do that for the 80s. Like I'm imagining some poor fucking, kids today, like I'm so sick of hearing about how great the 80s was. So it's our time to be annoying.
Yeah, let's take it over with weapons if necessary.
Yeah, swords.
Michael, can I get you to agree on that?
No, I'm
you
host
make
of
a
this
statement?
podcast and I'm ending it. Dave, where
I'm
can people
host.
find you?
Other
than
stuff
here.
to plug. I want
And
to
I
plug.
mean, I want your assassination coordinates.
Yes, I
Just tell a story right now, Dave. I want it so bad.
when I was a young man. No, you know what? I am going to waste time
No.
talking about a book I'm reading. It's called The Climb. There's a lot of
No.
climbing in it,
No.
but otherwise it's good.
Yeah, I didn't
very
learn how to
good.
climb reading your book.
Yeah.
Michael.
You read it?
Uh-oh.
I've been wondering. You're my best friend. Obviously, I've been wondering if you've read it.
I haven't finished reading it yet.
Now
It's hard.
Now you're
Reading
ready to
is
wrap
hard.
up the podcast, aren't you?
Yeah.
You've been milking this for so long.
Yeah,
I just
this is
gotta
the
read
first
it out of
time it's
spite.
come up.
In my head, this is a
Look,
scenario that's
Michael, I
happened
wrote
9
a
million
book.
times.
Look at
No,
me.
but you're almost done with the audio book, which is something to look forward to in the patreon.com/smallbeans store.
No, I
soon.
won't finish
might-
it though because this podcast will never wrap.
Oh no, you're
I
holding
might
it.
do the man.
It's my fault.
I'm reading it. I might stop reading it when the audiobook comes out. I really might.
Boy.
That's what
Because I'm such a
talking
slow
about.
reader. But there's also a patreon.com/gamefully unemployed. Listen, I'm part of a podcast network called Gamefully Unemployed. You know about it because we do so much stuff with Small Beans. We do Star Trek Next Futurama and Spielboys joint with Small Beans. We also have exclusive podcasts on there like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman and Fox Mulder's a Maniac. We are at the series finale of the X-Files, the first series finale. Before the movie and revival. So that's how far into it. I think we are the only podcast that has covered every episode of the original run of the X-Files. I think. So that's worth $5 a month plus all those other things. Or just Google Gamefully Unemployed wherever you Google things. On Google.
Yes.
For the record, if you are interested in the book, there's a big chunk of it that involves a visual symbology system that I went to great pains to devise, so you can only really experience that
Jesus.
if you actually read it. That won't be in the audiobook.
You
Now what,
fucking
Dave?
nerd.
Now
You can't
what?
make
You
can't make
nerd.
sounds to like make a map, like do little sonic clicks and stuff.
No, I thought about it, but no.
Can we just
Damn.
just read the first chapter right now at the end here of the book?
Just right now.
Just the first chapter.
Read the first chapter.
Cut.